fire, strumming along with our favorite lyre. Adventure call, the quest awaits, your destiny's in the hands of the fates. But never fear, we're all friends here, we'll have your back when danger's near. Come with us through the pages as we unravel a tale for the ages into the Percy-Verse.
Hello and welcome to the Percy-Verse podcast. I'm Alisa.
And I'm Anna. Eat your blue eggs and waffles and get ready for the last day of school because today we're reading The Sea of Monsters, Chapter 1, My Best Friend Shops for a Wedding Dress.
And we are live in person.
We are live in person. Not live when you're seeing this.
No,
but we are currently live together.
Yes, we are no longer tiny boxes on a computer screen.
We are one large box united. And it feels so good. And not only that, we have podcast shirts, people.
We do.
We have Percy-Verse podcast shirts. Not for sale yet, but let us know if you're interested, and maybe we can make that happen. For the audio-only listeners, I'm in a lovely Camp Half-Blood orange with black detailing the Percy-Verse podcast with our logo. And Alisa, what are you wearing?
I am wearing a lovely black shirt with gold detailing outlining our Percy-Verse podcast logo.
Yes, which is represented in our stop-motion animation of our intro song. So life imitates art, imitates life. And I can't believe we're starting book 2, The Sea of Monsters.
I know.
What is up with that?
Yeah, I don't know. It felt very weird taking notes on a chapter 1.
Agreed.
Again.
I've been at the back of the book.
Yes.
This was like opening the crispy new front page of a book.
Yes, yeah.
Very exciting, very strange.
It was a very odd experience, but
yeah.
Speaking of that, let's dive on in.
Let's.
We start this chapter with a great opening sentence.
Yes. Well, first, a great opening title.
Oh, yes.
I think we got to talk about this chapter title.
Yeah.
We are starting with My Best Friend Shops for a Wedding Dress, which I think is really interesting because I feel like Percy ends book 1 with 2 best friends.
Yes.
2 best friends. And, if this was Annabeth, there'd be a whole other story going on.
Oh, yeah.
Which would be very interesting, and Percy might not be happy about that. So I think it's an unexpected title. I think it's an intriguing title. I think it's has a little bit of inherent kind of humor in it, given that Percy is so young.
Yes.
And I just love it. I just wrote unexpected.
Yes, yeah. And it's interesting because it's a chapter title that, we were kind of talking a lot in the first book about how the chapter titles often gave, the reveal at the end of the chapter. But this is really a chapter title that focuses just on, the beginning. Yeah. So it's just, it's kind of a switch up.
Yep, it's the first section. Yep.
It's a chapter title, which is, I think, distinct from pretty much every chapter title in the Lightning Thief. At the beginning, They all pretty much either gave a almost pre-spoiler for the end of the chapter, or I'm thinking of the Battle with Ares chapter. It just kind of covers the entirety of what the chapter is about.
Right. The whole thing is I battle my jerk relative.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Yes. But so we start after that great chapter title. We start with the opening line of "My nightmare started like this."
Great opening line.
Yes, another great opening line, and I was having a lot of kind of deja vu with these first with this first chapter, and then, not to spoil too much, but also kind of the second chapter as well, in terms of there were so many parallels to the first book. And, I was thinking back to how chapter 1 of the Lightning Thief starts with Percy directly addressing the audience. Right. And I feel like that My Nightmare Started Like This feels like a very kind of Percy sitting down and being okay, listen to what I just happened.
Yeah, we kind of talked about how in the Lightning Thief you start with that idea of Percy first person narration, and then it doesn't feel as strong in some of the middle, but once you get to the end, you get some of that back where you're oh, this is Percy sitting in front of me telling me something.
Yes.
That's what's happening.
Yeah. Right, those fourth wall breaks.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Which I think here, even he knows it's Florida, and he's I wasn't sure how I knew that. Yeah. He's kind of meta commenting over top of his dream.
Yes. So yes, we meet Percy in his nightmare. He's standing on a deserted street in a little beach town in the middle of the night, and there's a storm that's blowing, wind and rain are ripping at the palm trees. There are these pink and yellow stucco buildings that line the street with their windows boarded up. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, a hurricane, is happening. And he notices that the ocean is churning, and that's when he has that thought of somehow knowing that he is in Florida, even though he's never been to Florida.
Though I do like that he specifically identifies the hibiscus bushes. Mm-hmm. Like, how does he know this?
Like, well, being friends with Grover, he's been learning plant knowledge. Like, those were the things that we didn't get in the first book. Was Grover, like Annabeth gave all of the architectural tours, and Grover was doing like
the plant tour and the mushroom tour. Mm-hmm. I would go on those tours. Honestly, that sounds great. But yeah, I love that he's like past a line of hibiscus bushes. Mm-hmm. It's like everything is like really intense and hurricane-y, but like we get this one really specific detail of like the plant.
Yes. And then that's when Percy hears hooves clattering against the pavement, and he turns and he sees his friend Grover running for his life. So the interesting thing that I felt like with this nightmare was that Percy's kind of like a third person POV.
Yes,
in it.
Grover.
He's not, it's like he's the camera kind of capturing everything that's happening.
More like his dreams with Kronos.
Exactly.
Which is interesting.
Yes, yeah. Because he just kind of like, and Grover kind of like comes from like off screen. It's like Percy's like planted there, and then Grover comes running in from off screen, and that's when he realizes like, oh, my friend Grover's here.
Which is very dream-like for something to start in the middle, but also like good storytelling. Like you're supposed to start in the middle of the story.
Right.
So I feel like that kind of does both.
Yeah. And then we get kind of a nice little recap of who Grover is and what he looks like. What
is a satyr?
Yes, I think, is while we're, reading these back to back, and every time you read these, you might not need the Grover rundown. I think it's smart and makes sense for when you're originally writing these books. Yeah. And it's been a year since the first one came out, had that little reminder of like, hey, in case you forgot, this is Grover.
Satyrs are a thing. This is what a satyr is. Grover is a satyr. I also think that like when you're writing books, you have to think about somebody going to like a used bookstore and picking up just this book and not being like totally completely confused. Yeah. And especially when your series or you as an author are like newly successful, I feel like you can't rely on everybody just like knowing what the book is. Yeah. And so like you kind of have to do a little more of the recapping, I think, in an initial kind of 1, 2, 3 of your books than you do in a sequel series or like later in a series,
Well, and I was just thinking of the writing advice that you got, which is that like whenever you're creating a world where things are different from our reality, like clarifying that and pointing that out. Because I was thinking about how we don't get quite the same like paragraph of a rundown for Annabeth, but that it makes sense because like satyrs do not, as far as we are aware of, exist in our current reality.
Like known reality.
Yes. And so describing Grover more in detail versus Annabeth being able,
like,
to
she's
have a shorter,
girl with blonde hair,
right,
and a hat.
It's important to bring in more of those reminders when things are different from our
that's
current
a really good
reality.
point. Yes.
So
I will say Percy had a weird like Grover body shaming moment where unless you happen to catch him with his pants on, which I don't recommend. And I was like, why? It's just fur. Like, it's just fur. Yeah. Why do we not recommend seeing Grover without his pants on?
I wonder if maybe Percy's still a little traumatized from, like, Montauk and
that's fair.
That night. And just kind of the shock of, like,
maybe what he means is, I don't recommend doing that when you don't already know that's what he looks like. Yeah. Okay, I can live with that.
That was a big, because that was, he had that, and then he found out he was like,
that was a traumatic
that whole night was such a traumatic night. So absolutely. I feel like maybe he's just still a little scarred.
I like the completion of that thought. Yeah. I just think we didn't quite get that.
Yes. Yeah. And we get this hilarious recap, in my opinion, of the first book. Yeah. Which is Grover had been my best friend in 6th grade. He'd gone on this adventure with me and a girl named Annabeth to save the world, but I hadn't seen him since last July when he set off alone on a dangerous quest, a quest no satyr had ever returned from.
Yeah.
And I was just like, one, calling it going on this adventure.
Yeah,
to
just
save,
this adventure,
just this adventure
across
to
the
save
country,
world.
to the underworld, you know, things.
I know, it's such a like understatement of a summary.
Yes.
But then we also get that reminder refresher that Grover is on this dangerous quest that no satyr has returned from to try and find Pan.
I have to say, when the wording of like we've gone on this dangerous quest to save the world, this adventure, whatever, I just like heard the Avatar intro.
Oh, absolutely! Dun, 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 dun.
Only Aang can save the world. I think Aang can save the world. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Yes. No. That. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then we get this. Percy's kind of gone on a little like mental side quest explanation to the audience, and then goes, anyway, in my dream.
Like, well, and that's still that kind of like removed like narration piece that is bringing us like back to the lightning thief.
Yeah. And then we get this. To me, it was kind of a funny description of Grover was hauling goat tail, holding his human shoes in his hands the way he does when he needs to move fast. And I was just like that's
that
Grover in sport mode.
Sport mode. Sporty Grover.
Yes. We're all over variations of Grover.
Sporty Grover.
He's holding his human feet and he's...
But I do really like that that's like a specific detail. Not only that it's something that we can know about Grover, that like he has to hold his human shoes when he's running fast, which I'm assuming have, you know, I'm still like interested in this whole where the fake feet inserts and how does that, you know, work. Anyway. But I also like that cues Percy. Like Percy knows Grover well enough to know that means something, you know? I like that.
Side follow-up question to that. Where do we think that the feet inserts are produced? Like, is there a Greek mythological factory that is producing?
That's interesting. Well, because are they made of styrofoam? Do we learn that?
I think, right?
Right? So it doesn't need to be forged in any kind of like special place.
Like, do the Amazonians in
that
Seattle,
could be that seems like
they
the best
maybe
option.
Produce and then and send shipments to
they
camp?
Have on the side like the little Amazon logo with like a little symbol. I think that feels like the best guess because to me the one interesting thing is like styrofoam doesn't feel particularly like nature friendly,
right?
Because otherwise I would say like maybe somehow if they're made of something else, like the nymphs are helping make them, because it's very like crafty. But I feel like I'm gonna go with the Amazons. I like that. I think that makes sense.
And so Percy's now kind of realizing Grover's terrified something big and scary is happening, and he's going past little tourist shops and surfboard rental places, and
he's clopping.
Clopping,
them,
yes,
which
sorry,
I do really appreciate.
Yes,
he clopped.
Clopped.
Like that is fabulous. You never read that.
Yeah,
I also love the detail that the wind is bending the palm trees almost to the ground because I feel like
some strong wind.
I feel like that is like one of the signs of like a hurricane is here or coming, you know?
Which I think is so interesting, like for a son of Poseidon, you know, and that he will one day make a hurricane. I don't know. You know,
no, that is interesting. I also thought when we started this chapter, I was like, man, we always got to start these books like raining. I mean, we didn't like start, but there had been like storms and things.
Yes, that's true.
And it's like it felt like deja vu to be reading that there's like a storm and rain, and it feels more like you're saying Poseidon-y to have a hurricane than you know the other one is maybe Zeus and Poseidon clashing at the beginning of book one. But it was kind of an interesting thing.
No, that is similarity. And the kind of I feel like in general, and which makes sense for Greek mythology, to have the association of storms with like something's wrong, the gods are angry. Yes, you know. For
something is amiss.
And we start both books off very immediately with like the oh my god, I'm blanking on the word for it. The
I do not know what that hand gesture represents. I'm sorry.
The inciting incident.
That's the word.
Yes. There's another word I was trying to think of, but we start both.
Catalyst.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Welcome.
I was trying to do like a fire, and it starts.
See, to me, it looked like pulling down gesture.
Oh,
not starting
gotcha.
up.
Okay. But we start both with like the catalyst that
Yes.
then like propels us into
Yes.
like the, you know, the plot of the book very, very quickly. And so
Yeah.
both like there are the storms, and you know, because Percy notes them on the trip
Yep.
to the museum, and like yeah, it
There's
made
some
me
parallels.
curious about paying attention to like the start of Titan's Curse and Labyrinth, and just paying attention to how many books start with a storm or not. Like, does the Lost here, like, does Jason start with a storm when they're going to the Grand Canyon? I mean, the storm
Not on
eventually
the
kind of
bus,
comes.
but they're with wind
Yeah.
spirits who are going to create
Yeah,
storm-like conditions,
right.
and that's in the first chapter.
yeah.
So
yeah.
or second chapter. So yeah.
Yeah, we can kind of pay attention to how many.
And then Annabeth shows up at the end of that chapter.
Yes.
Very similar to this chapter.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
well, she's gonna show up in chapter 2, but you know. What I'm
Yes. Yeah.
saying. Interesting.
So we know that Grover is terrified of something. We don't know what it is yet. And Percy notes that Grover must have just come from the beach because wet sand was caked in his fur. And Percy also notes that Grover clearly escaped from somewhere and he was trying to get away from something.
Yeah.
So we're getting the sense that, you know, Grover has made it to Florida. It's been very dangerous and he's been in a lot of perilous situations. And this is maybe like the most frightening of them all that we're being dropped into. And then we hear a bone-rattling growl cut through the storm, and behind Grover at the far end of the block, a shadowy figure loomed. It swatted aside a street lamp, which burst in a shower of sparks.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with something big.
Big enough to swat aside a street lamp, which we're assuming is a pretty tall, structure of metal. So that is rough. And it's interesting, too, because Percy is going to then, like, sort of see a shadowy figure in his own life, like, right after this. Which feels very ominous until it's revealed, like, who it is. So, yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. And Grover is stumbling, whimpering in fear and muttering to himself, have to get away, have to warn them.
Yes, very ominous.
Incredibly, incredibly ominous. And Percy can't really make out what was chasing Grover, but he could hear that it's muttering and cursing and that the ground is shaking as it gets closer.
Yes.
So we're getting all of these hints that this is a very large being.
Yes, something
of some
gigantic
kind. Yes,
is
like
chasing Grover.
shaking the ground, swatting.
Yes.
Like to even describe like swatting at something is not like you swat at a fly, like you swat at something small,
really small
in
compared-
comparison,
exactly.
to yourself. And then this is where we get the why the chapter has its title for the wedding dress, because Grover's like dashing around a street corner and he falters and he's run into a dead-end courtyard full of shops without any time to like back up and try to go somewhere else. And the nearest door had been blown open by a storm, and which is the door for St. Augustine Bridal Boutique. And so Grover dashes inside and dives behind a rack of wedding dresses.
And now we know where we are.
Yes.
Which is helpful.
Yes. And the monster's shadow passed in front of the shop, and Percy can smell it now. So
interesting in a dream.
Yes,
it
to
gives
be
us like
able
a sense of their connection, I think.
Yeah, well, and I think giving hints that like this is different.
Yeah,
you know, it's unlike the dreams with Kronos. There are all of these added sensory layers that like didn't exist prior.
Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to remember if Percy feels sort of that
The
chill.
cold?
Like I think he feels the cold, but he's not smelling anything.
No. Yeah. And you know, maybe I don't know. Maybe they were meeting it was odorless. But when we do get the reveal of the link that, you know, Grover made between him and Percy, we then kind of understand like why
it's so visceral.
So vivid.
Yeah.
And so Percy, the smell that comes to Percy, which is lovely, is a sickening combination of wet sheep wool and rotten meat, and that weird sour body odor only monsters have, like a skunk that's been living off Mexican food.
Which I wrote rude. Just rude. Like Rick, like, no.
Yeah.
No. Like the rest of it's fine.
Yeah.
But I love Mexican food.
Me too.
A lot of people eat and love Mexican food.
Yes.
And we don't need to throw a whole country, which also Mexican food is very diverse and it's not just one thing.
Yeah.
But we don't need to throw a whole country's food under the bus in talking about it as being stinky.
Yes.
So that's my one like,
Yeah.
no. But if we take the rest of that, the sheep wool, the rotten meat, the weird sour body odor, I think that that's also like, we're getting hints in here too.
Yes,
with
we
the
are.
sheep wool and
Yep.
I think that between that
And the rotten meat.
and we're kind of setting up too, even with the wedding dress, like we're not going to find out why this is necessary for a little while, but like the fact that we're bringing it right up at the front,
Yes.
and then we're not going to resolve it till like the end of the book,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
is going to be like, it's a really interesting way to give us hints already right at the beginning.
Totally.
You know,
Well,
page
and
3.
Again, thinking about the parallels back to the beginning of The Lightning Thief, where we get all of these hints that Zeus and Poseidon are mad at each other and something really big has happened that won't be resolved
and even
until
like
the very
steal
end.
about the girl that's talking about Kronos, or like that has the story of Kronos that Chiron asked them about, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So there were just so many parallels to kind of like, though the setups are very different, obviously, because the stories are totally different in terms of like what transpires in them, that they're similar, they're parallels in kind of like
revealing
the story
information.
structure, I guess, is the way
I would
to say
agree
it.
with that. Well, and that's true for a lot of these books too, even in terms of like we're gonna go on a quest, and obviously that's also like an ancient Greek story, like mythology structure, like A, B, C, D, E, like we're going through places to get to a thing, to do a thing, like and so even like then giving us some backstory that's relevant to what the quest will be this time is like helpful.
Yeah. And then so Grover is trembling behind the wedding dresses.
Yeah.
The monster's shadow passes on. It's silent except for the rain. And Grover takes a deep breath, and Percy's like, maybe the thing was gone.
Yeah.
But then lightning flashes, the entire front of the store exploded, and a monstrous voice bellowed, "Mine!"
Yep.
So
Jump scare.
yeah, absolute jump scare.
Yeah.
That's where the nightmare ends, and it's a terrifying place to end.
Absolutely.
And we basically end with Grover in extreme danger.
Mortal peril.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're not going to revisit him
No.
for a little while.
Yeah.
And that sucks. Yeah.
Yes.
And that's his best friend. And as he goes through, he's going to be thinking about this. And it's like, of course, if you had a dream that was this vivid about somebody that you care deeply about in trouble, especially if you're in a magical, mythological world where your dreams have been real before,
Yep.
you're going to be concerned.
Yes.
You're going to be rightfully concerned.
Yes.
Yeah. But Percy bolts upright and he's shivering validly again.
Yeah.
There is no storm, which is interesting when he's like in Montauk. There's like like the storm and
Yes, in
the
his dream, and he wakes up to the storm being
it's
in
like
real
happening
life.
in real life, but here it's not. Again, sort of like all these like parallels, I feel like, between the stories.
Yeah.
Morning sunlight is coming through the bedroom window, so it's the morning. And he sees a shadow flicker across the glass, a human-like shape. And that's interesting because I think after, like I was saying, after the dream about Grover, seeing a human-like shadow outside your window, like terrifying. Like we know it's Annabeth.
Yeah.
But like Percy doesn't know that yet. And I think as the reader, you're like, Percy.
Yes.
You know?
Well, and I think it's so smart because like it's so often if like, you know, you wake up from a nightmare, you then think you see the thing like in your room or whatever that you thought you saw in your nightmare. Or all the times you'll be like, wait, did I just see something out of the corner of my eye and there's like nothing there? I think it's so smart, like writing wise, to have that, because just like Percy, when you're reading this book for the first time, you can be like, okay, he was probably just seeing something, but also like we're in a mythological world, so he probably wasn't.
If it's
but he
Percy,
might
like
have
there's
been.
probably something there, and it's probably bad. I think that's the thing. It's like you think it's something bad. We learned that it's not, but like it kind of adds. It carries the feeling of the nightmare forward. So even though like things seem to be going well for Percy, we're going to find out, like we get this ominous undercurrent of like, okay, things are afoot. Like something is amiss.
Yep.
So he is interrupted in this thought process of, is there actually someone outside, by his mom calling that he's going to be late. The shadow disappears. He thinks it's his imagination, which I love that, like, he's still sort of, throughout this chapter, he's, like, still trying to make things make sense.
Yes.
He's like, a 5th-story window with a rickety old fire escape. There couldn't have been anyone out there. I'm like, Percy, you like know monsters are real. You've seen them fly. You've been to the underworld. Like, they could get to your window.
I know.
Like, they're not, but they could.
It's so funny how much Percy so far retains that. Like,
yes.
I will make it make sense for my current reality, which means that, like, there aren't monsters and it's not. Like, there aren't monsters currently here and it's not scary and I'm fine. When I'm not at Camp
Half-Blood, I'm fine.
Yeah. And it makes me want to pay attention to how long, like, that stays throughout the books.
Yeah.
And if at a certain point in this series or in Heroes of Olympus, he starts to be like, I've been through enough things now.
Yeah. I think
I'm no longer trying to make it all make sense.
More in Heroes of Olympus, it's interesting because then he, like, has lost a lot of his memory.
Yes.
But I feel like he's almost even more than leaning on his intuition.
Yeah.
So he, like, does better about it than he does in these books because that's, like, what he has left.
Yeah.
It's like Annabeth and intuition.
Yeah.
Yes. Because we've already kind of established, like, how good his intuition is throughout the first book. So Percy's mom is really enthusiastic, which, you know, we love Sally Jackson, as we've established. And she's like, last day of school, you should be excited. You've almost made it. And I love they're like, making it through a whole year of school. Like, this is such a big deal for Percy.
Yeah.
And he feels that he's still got anaclysmos or riptide under. He's sleeping with it under his pillow. So even though he's trying to make things make sense, he does have his, like, demigod hypervigilance is at work. Like, something could happen. But also we get to remember, you know, his sword, which is helpful for our recapping. And, you know, he thinks about uncapping it, but something's holding him back. And he hasn't had to use Riptide for a long time, we find out. So he really hasn't had a lot of problems this year, which is unusual for him. And we'll get to learn why. Not in these first couple chapters, but eventually we'll get to learn why. And apparently his mom had made him promise not to use deadly weapons in the apartment after he'd swung a javelin the wrong way and taken out her china cabinet, which, rough. Also, I just kind of, like, wish we could read about, like, day-to-day life.
Oh, totally.
Because also, like, I don't know, part of me is just, like, it feels amazing that Percy gets to live at home and go to school, because, like, he's never really gotten to do that, like, as far as we know, or at least not always gotten to do that. Like, sometimes he's been sent to schools and things. So it's just really nice to think of, like, a whole school year where he and his mom are able to, like, have a normal life together.
Yeah.
I love that. I just love that for them so much. Yeah. So he gets dressed. He tries not to think about his nightmare or monsters or what Grover was saying at the end. And so he makes that 3-fingered claw and pushes it outward, which is that gesture that Grover taught him to ward off evil. Again, he's got that, like, intuition about what's happening.
Well, and that felt like another parallel to the first book.
Totally.
Because, like, he first sees Grover do that gesture and he's like, what is
that?
But
early.
Then, and has that moment where, like, you know, when he's leaving with his mom for Montauk, he, like, does it at, like, Gabe, and, you know, that's, and the door like, slams on him. But there are just all of these little things, both story structure, but then little moments that feel like just such fun parallels to the opening of the first book.
Totally agree. There's a lot. And so then he's thinking about how, for the first time in his life, he'd almost made it the entire year without getting expelled. This is a huge accomplishment. No weird accidents, no fights in the classroom, no teachers turning into monsters. And that's, like, unheard of for Percy Jackson. Like, that is such a big deal. And tomorrow he'd be on his way to his favorite place in the world, Camp Half-Blood, which is very exciting. Obviously, what our shirts are, you know, referencing here.
I do think it's really funny that, like, coming off of, you know, Percy's gone through all the events that happened in the Lightning Thief, with everyone telling him that, like, being a child of the Big Three means you attract way more monsters. Once you know you'll attract way more monsters, your scent will be stronger. Like, I kind of find it hilarious that at no point during the year does it sound like he went, that's weird.
What's going on?
Like, how is it that I am now
Where are they?
safer? Like, how have I been safer for the first year that I have been, like, out in the world, aware of who my dad is, told that my scent is going to be stronger and all of that? He's at no point like, what's going on there?
Something's a little funky here.
like how am I like making it through better than I did when I was like 5
Right. And when I
had
didn't
zero
know.
awareness
Yeah.
about any of
It's
it.
a good question.
I think it makes a lot of sense for Percy because I feel like he, like all the times in the first book that we were like, Percy, how are you, like, you're not catching the like millions of red flags
Totally
telling you that there's a monster staring you in the face right now.
Right.
Like I can totally understand. You'd be like, Mom, so chill. This is great.
This is
like,
great. I'm
that's
actually
awesome.
I think Percy, like, when things are he likes things to go well. Like, like, which makes sense. That
and I feel like Sally
feeling.
would too, and I can imagine her as a mom being like, I'm just not going to question.
Yeah. We're just gonna let this happen. And it's like not for a bad reason either. We just like don't know why yet.
Yeah.
Yes. And so he's got one more day to go. And then we get our lovely ominous section closing. We got a few of those in this chapter.
Yep.
Surely even I couldn't mess that up. As usual, I didn't have a clue how wrong I was.
Yeah.
And again, like, this reminds me so much of the first book because I feel like it's not in every single chapter that he's reflective in that way. And it really does make you feel like he's writing this later. Or he's telling you this story like after all the events of the series have happened, which is kind of fun.
Absolutely. And so then we cut to Sally making blue waffles and blue eggs for breakfast.
Kind of reminded me of like green eggs and ham, but it's just like her version of that.
Because, she celebrates special occasions with blue food. I love the sentence of, I think it's her way of saying anything is possible.
Yes.
Like, I think it's so much more impactful. Like, we get the backstory of the blue food in the first book with like that fight that her and Gabe had where he said like food wasn't blue.
Right.
And so then she intentionally started buying like every blue food possible. And then now, like, at the start of Sea of Monsters, they've had this lovely year, like, free of Gabe, and things have been calm. And so just, like, it now signifying, like, anything is possible.
I think it's really sweet. It, like, so transcends its origin, which I really like.
It does.
Which is kind of a beautiful metaphor for, like, trauma healing, actually. Because now that I'm, like, thinking about it, I'm like, whoa. Because I think that the idea that something can come out of a traumatic experience, but then transform into something meaningful beyond that. That says something bigger about life and hopefulness and gratitude and whatever. Like, that's so cool. That's like what we do when we trauma heal.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right about that. And we get the list of the little miracles, like Percy can pass 7th grade and waffles can be blue.
Yeah, I love that.
And we find out that Sally still works selling candy at Sweet on America because she's washing dishes in her work uniform, which is that same starry blue skirt and a red and white striped blouse. Her hair's still pulled back in a ponytail. I feel like this is very classic. Like in these first, 2 books. Sally Jackson.
And like we know from the end of the last book that she's like taking classes and she is so it is also really cool, I think, to see. We talk a lot about how these books portray like realistic things that we appreciate, and I think like the fact that she didn't just go, like, we don't have Paul yet, like the fact that she didn't just go from like terrible abusive husband and not going to school, not being a writer, to like this book opens with her first book selling or something. You know what I mean? Like, she's still working at the candy store. She's like going to classes and such, but like this is her on her journey forward. And so some of it's the same and some of it's different. That's like how life works. Like, like your life gradually changes. It doesn't usually change all in one go just because of like one thing or one change, even like leaving one person. Or turning him into a statue, which we can't ethically or legally recommend doing on this channel. But which we applaud Sally Jackson for.
But both of, like, Percy's kind of like off, and Sally notices because the waffles tasted great, but Percy wasn't digging in like he usually would. And so Sally looks over and frowns at him and asks if he's all right, and he gives her a fine, but she could always tell when something was bothering him. The magic eyes.
Magic eyes
that see the truth.
They see the truth.
And she asks school but doesn't finish the sentence. Percy knows what she's asking about, and he just straight up says, I think Grover's in trouble, and tells her about the dream, which I think is such a, like, we see such a journey that both of them go on with, like, Sally being worried about Percy, and kind of that, like, stance of, like, how much to tell her versus not. But I think this is such a lovely moment of him getting to be, like, a kid being like, I think my friend's in trouble. Like, I got this information through this, like, magical route because I had a nightmare. And those need to be taken very seriously, like, because mythological stuff is real. And also now I'm going to my mom being like, I think my friend's in trouble. I don't know what to do.
And he, like, trusts her, you know, to tell her that information. And I think that's, you know, it's true for, like, a lot of kids in the middle school, in the high school range. It's like, how much do you tell your parents? How much do you not tell your parents about what's, like, really happening with, like, friends, or, you know, like, crushes, or like all different kinds of things. So I think it's just like same but demigod, you know, version of things. But I think it's sweet that he does want to confide in her still, and he trusts her to be able to, like, take that in. And even though she's like clearly sort of uncomfortable, like not really wanting to talk about camp too much, that, you know, she cares about Percy and his friendship with Grover and that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Because then we do find out that they don't talk that much about what Percy calls the other part of his life, but they just try to live as normally as possible.
We don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about Camp
Half-Blood. But she basically just tries to reassure Percy by saying that he shouldn't be too worried, that Grover's a big satyr now, and if there were a problem, I'm sure that we would have heard from camp. But her shoulders tense as she says the word camp.
And now Percy, little
clocks
ears
in and goes, okay, Mom, now
you're not the only one who can see how people are feeling.
Yes, exactly. And because Percy asks her, what is it? And she says nothing, that she'll tell him, she says nothing. And then she says, I'll tell you what, this afternoon. She
deflects hardcore. She's like, can I bribe you not to ask me what's happening with camp?
Because she says that this afternoon they'll celebrate the end of school, and she'll take him and Tyson to the Rockefeller Center, to the skateboard shop that he likes. So she's doing big, like, parent bribery of like, don't ask me any more questions.
If you don't ask why again, I will give you a cookie.
Yep. And Percy jumps immediately and he goes, oh man, that was tempting. Because they were always struggling with money, which I think is, you know, she gets a lot of money from the sale of the sculpture, but like new apartment, like paying for school, like paying for like her expenses, Percy's expenses, like there's, you know, I'm sure I don't know if the school, you know,
well, I think she had put down a deposit on a new school. So I think Percy's school and her school both cost money.
So just that it makes sense again for that, like, realism, like it makes sense that they're not all of a sudden like magically flush and everything's fine. There's still the reality of like
we're still in transition.
And and he does go on to say that between his mom's night classes and his private school tuition, they couldn't ever really afford to do special stuff like shop for a skateboard, but something in her voice bothered him. And he says, wait a minute, I thought we were packing me up for camp tonight. And she twists her dish rag and says, dear, about that, I got a message from Chiron last night. And Percy's heart sinks because I think he is already picking up the fact that she's avoiding it, the fact that like she's not waiting to talk about it. He knows, and he also knows that Chiron wouldn't contact them unless something serious was going on. And so he asks what Chiron says, and Sally just replies with, he thinks it might not be safe for you to come to camp just yet. We might have to postpone. And that really, I think, starts to freak Percy out because, you know, asking like postpone, how could it not be safe? I'm a half-blood. It's like the only safe place on earth for me, which, you know, we already got early in the chapter that he's so excited to go to camp like tomorrow, and that would like hearing that the one place where you were supposed to be safe, you know, might not be able to go back to because it isn't, would be very, very scary.
Absolutely.
And she says, usually, dear, but with the problems they're having, and he asks what problems, but she's just now kind of back to evading it all. She just really doesn't want to talk about it. And she says that she's very, very sorry, that she's hoping to talk about it with him this afternoon. She can't explain it all now. And she's not even sure that Chiron can, which
Yeah, that's
we're
like
getting,
a huge deal.
yes, like we're getting these hints of the levels to which things are so bad that like she doesn't want to talk about it. She can't explain it. She doesn't even think Chiron can give an explanation for what's going on.
Which is like really interesting. It's kind of like when we were speculating like were Chiron or Grover in touch with Sally, you know, last book. It's like we're kind of like finding this parallel of like Chiron is giving Sally information, and I like would like to see that conversation.
Totally.
Like, how did that happen? Was it an Irish message? Like Sally's doing dishes and Chiron's head just sort of like pops into the kitchen.
Yes.
But when, you know, she says everything happened so suddenly, and like Percy's mind is reeling, and he's like, how could I not go to camp? And it's like there's one thing where he's like, I've had a pretty good school year.
Yeah.
But that's all with the mind of like, the summer is camp.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't go to, like, the idea of not going to camp, even though he's only been there one summer.
Yeah.
It's such a home to him.
Yes.
So it sets his mind reeling.
Yep.
And he wants to ask a million questions. But then the kitchen clock chimes the half hour, and Percy's mom looks relieved. Okay, I escaped. You have to get to school.
Yeah.
Oh no, you have to get to school. 7:30, dear. You should go. Tyson will be waiting.
Yeah.
Which like Percy like always manages. We'll talk about it, I think in the next chapter. But,
Yeah.
like he always manages to make these friends.
I know.
That's also a parallel, man.
Know. Yeah.
And then Percy's trying to argue, but Sally's like, we'll talk this afternoon, go on to school. And Percy does not want to go to school.
No.
He wants to figure out what's happening. He's kind of, you know, I think the first book gave him a really strong desire for the truth.
Yes.
Even more than before. He's like, I need to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
But Sally has this fragile look in her eyes, kind of like a warning, like if he pushed her too hard, she'd start to cry. And that Percy really needs to go meet Tyson, because if, you know, he wasn't there on time, Tyson would get upset because he's scared of traveling underground alone, which is a little, you know, there's things we're starting to get little hints about Tyson, just the tiniest bits. But I'm so excited we get Tyson in this book. I'm just like he's just been name dropped so far, but we love Tyson. And then Percy says, Mom, this problem at camp, could it have anything to do with my dream about Grover? Which, you know, he's like, okay, if something bad is happening over here. And something bad is happening over here. And they're both part of the magical world. And I'm thinking, you know, I think his quest in The Lightning Thief has taught him that bigger forces can be at work that can like affect many things at once. And so he's probably like, I feel like his corkboard is up for this year already. Like he hasn't had to use it in a while, but he's dusted it off, pulled it out of the closet, and he's like, all right, Grover, wedding dress, big monster, camp Half-Blood.
Well, and I think the experience, like particularly the reveal of Luke at the end of the last book as like the mole on the inside who like brought the hellhound, like brought the like actual dangers at camp. Like he brought them into camp. And also then was working with Kronos on like the larger like problems outside of camp. I think to your point, it made Percy realize, okay, something bad happening at camp can be directly linked and tied to something bad happening outside of camp. That like there can be that connection there.
Absolutely. And Sally doesn't answer and just says, we'll talk this afternoon. I'll explain as much as I can. And Percy says goodbye and jogs downstairs to catch the number 2 train. And then we get our second ominous
incredibly
break
ominous
where he says, I didn't know it at the time, but my mom and I would never get to have our afternoon talk. In fact, I wouldn't be seeing home for a long, long time. Which the 2 longs there like makes it feel like even longer than it actually is, I think.
Like, it makes it feel like Percy's gonna be gone for like a year.
It makes it feel like he's not gonna be in the next book or something. Or like we're gonna have
it's like the Son of Neptune is gonna happen and he's been missing for months.
Exactly what it feels like Son of Neptune is upon us when it is so not. But it does build that ominous feeling. He steps outside and he glances at the brownstone building across the street, and just for a second, he sees a dark shape again in the morning sunlight, a human silhouette, against the brick wall, a shadow that belonged to no one, which is like a really cool line.
Well, and such a fun Easter egg for no one.
Yes.
Like,
oh my God, you're so right.
Right?
Oh my God.
Right,
It's all
right,
set up at the
right.
beginning. I love that.
I know.
Then it ripples and vanishes. And this is my question. So, like, this is with Annabeth having the hat on, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like I hadn't remembered or hadn't realized, like, what the limitations of the hat were. But this kind
You
of
still
tells
have a
us,
shadow.
this kind of tells us that, like, it's not
Yeah.
like a full invisibility power.
Right.
That there
It
is.
can't like bend the light to prevent you from making a shadow or having some sort of way
just
for
makes your
someone to
actual
perceive.
body not visible.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
really interesting, I thought.
Yeah,
like learning
yeah.
how that kind of works.
Yeah,
But that
absolutely.
brings us to the end of chapter 1, which is kind of wild. It is one of our
know.
shortest chapters ever. It is
Yeah.
7 pages long.
Yeah.
But I think between the nightmare about Grover and getting to learn where Percy and Sally are in their lives,
Yeah.
getting some like hints about something might be wrong at camp.
Yep.
You know, it really does pull you right into the story.
Yeah.
And it makes you intrigued, excited, nervous, scared.
Yes.
You know, you're kind of feeling what Percy's feeling, I think. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with Grover? What's wrong with camp? And it sets up like the immediate mysteries and even Easter eggs, like we've been saying,
Yeah.
for sort of the final parts of the book.
Yeah. Yeah. It sets up every major story thread, including Tyson, because Tyson is mentioned.
Yep.
And we get little hints about the ways in which he is a little different, like being scared to go underground
Yep.
and,
Yep.
you know, cry if Percy doesn't meet him there. Like, we get every, like, thread that will follow and everything that will turn into a big reveal, you know, at some point throughout the book.
I think the only thing we don't get introduced to is Clarice.
Yes.
Like, that's a really
Yeah.
big thread of this book. But we are being given the thread of, like, something's wrong at camp. So
Yes.
at least, like, we do
Yeah.
know something's happening at camp.
Yeah, like the major things that will then follow all of the
Yeah.
like roots that shoot off of we get in this
Yeah.
like what might also be, I think, maybe the shortest chapter of like the whole series, but also I think
know.
probably the shortest chapter 1.
Yeah.
Like,
I think
yeah.
certainly. 7 pages. And
Yeah.
it's not, you know, it doesn't even end at the bottom of the
No,
page.
no.
Or start at the top of the page.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this is, I think it's also a good example in concise writing that's really
Yeah.
compelling.
Yes.
So, any final thoughts or themes? This might be our shortest
I
chapter
know.
yet, but also exciting to be here.
Yes, yeah. Just that I appreciate how much we just get launched into the story without it feeling so rushed. Like we
Yeah.
still get the little we get the moment, you know, of like Percy and Sally had some normalcy, right? Like,
Yes.
we don't get a whole chapter dedicated to like hearing what that was like, but
Right.
I think Rick Riordan does a good job of giving you enough of something that you like can feel it as you're reading it. Like, you know, even when it's reminding me back with book 1, like how we were talking about how you don't really spend all that much time at Camp Half-Blood before you leave, but you get such an attachment to it as a reader. And
Totally.
like you really feel like you understand it as a place and become emotionally attached to it.
Yeah.
And just that I think he does, to back to your point about like the concise writing, I think he does a really good job at doing things so concisely that like you get what you need and you can still like jump right into the story and not be
Yeah.
like, well, wait, but hold on, what was his year and what's happening?
Right,
You know,
right,
how
right.
what's Sally up to? You know, like how are things going? Like we get that.
You get the new normal. And
Yeah.
and even in saying like between her night classes and his, you know, school and whatever, like that even tells you without making a big deal out of it that like she's going to night classes and like she's still working at Sweet on America, so like we know that's her day job.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it is such a good example of telling you those things in a way that doesn't have to take a whole lot of time to do so.
Yeah.
Which is really impressive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts from you?
I'm just excited to be starting. I'm
I
excited
know.
to be here in person. This is starting. I'm excited to be wearing this T-shirt. It's all very exciting. And to be taking to the sea in this book. I am very, very much looking forward to that.
Yes.
But I think in that case, we will end probably our shortest episode ever.
Yeah.
And see you next time for chapter 2 I play dodgeball with cannibals. Bye.
Bye.